today I'm going to talk about private equity. A lot of people, there's different forms of private equity. I don't think everyone knows that much about buyout private equity. It's a very specific type. So mine's more sort of facts rather than a personal journey that I'm going to talk about today. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what is buyout equity. And then I'm going to talk about the deal and how they're structured. And then I'm going to talk about what's like post-deal. Based on that, it should give you an understanding if you're running a company, whether this is something you want to consider in the future, right? Okay, so first of all, a lot of us here have heard of venture capital. Venture capital are the guys when you're running an early stage company, and they come to events, they got a lot of media, and they invest in your company and you dilute shares. And so I'm not going to be talking about venture capital, right? In the middle, you've got growth equity, which is sort of a blend somewhere between venture capital and buyout equity, where they might buy some shares from people and then they invest in the company at the same time. It's kind of what Neil did. His first round was growth equity, and I'm not going to talk about these folks either. What I'm talking about here is buyout equity, and buyout equity looks at more mature businesses. So if you're running a business that's over 10 years old, it's making money, solid business. They tend to go after a lower risk. They look at profit multiples. It's usually almost all secondary, meaning they're just buying stock from you. The business doesn't require capital. It's generating cash, right? And they will buy on a basis of a multiple of profit. And so for some people in early stage companies, I don't want to sell for a multiple of profit. But when 40% of your business or your revenue is profit, it's actually quite a lot of money. All right, so when you get to that stage, it can be very attractive. And not to mention that most of the time, they will buy your business, 25 to 75% of the purchase price will be debt. And we're going to talk about the value of that later, especially if you're rolling stock. Debt really puts your equity on steroids, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit about that, all right? So first of all, in the universe of private equity, I've got a bar chart here. You can see the growth of what's called dry powder. Dry powder is committed capital that is yet to be spent in the private equity. Private equity is investment in private companies. And the vast majority, you can see the gray part, is buyout equity. There's a lot of it around. There's a ton of it around. In fact, right now we're sitting, combined, it's almost over $1 trillion in dry powder. $1 trillion looking for companies to invest in, right? It's phenomenal. And in the private equity world, it's really, you see less and less IPOs because companies are selling to buyout private equity. That makes sense. Okay, so it's pretty common here. Here's a bunch of folks in the last few years that have sold to buyout equity, right? And in fact, Chris is on his second tour, right, Chris? And what's interesting is most of these businesses were founded 10 to 30 years ago. So if you're an early stage company, don't think about this yet. But it's more for your folks that have been around a while that are thinking about, hey, I'd like to have some liquidity, and we'll talk about what you should be thinking about. And in some cases, the CEOs stay on. They'll roll some equity moving forward, so they keep participating, and others have exited the business. As we know, Neil, some intentionally and some unintentionally. So, and Jeff here is, of course, presented tonight as well, and Shaw is another member of our roundtable. So this is a pretty common thing. You're going to see a lot more buyout equity in the universe here. So that's buyout equity. So we're going to talk about the deal, and this is what they look like when they first approach you. Right? They look really nice. Yeah. So how are these deals structured? So let's hypothetically say, you could be owning 60%, 70%, 20%, whatever. You own a percentage of your company. What a lot of people don't understand is that they use, when I had our company, it's funny, we had all this cash. Let's keep some more cash on the balance sheet just in case. We'll keep $3 or $4 million on the balance sheet, and we'll put out some dividends. And, we were really thinking about debt, right? And one of the things, it was an education for me. Also, the private equity guys get a really good deal on debt, right? The lenders. Any lenders in the room here? Hands up. Yeah. They kind of follow these PE funds around because they're always borrowing money and they're getting really good deals. And so what they'll do, what's really crazy about it is, let's say you have 20% of a company, and let's say that's worth $10 million. And then you'll sell $5 million worth of equity and end up owning 20% of your company afterwards. Really cool, right? Because what happens in this transaction is this company is sold 100%. That's the mechanics of the transaction sold. And what happens is then you get an opportunity to invest in the new company, but you're just investing in the equity part. So you put $5 million into the new company and you own 20%, and you end up paying off that debt and still having 20%. Right? It's pretty neat how it works, right? So you can kind of maintain your percentage while taking capital off the table, right? One piece of advice, given that you don't really know the outcome of working for someone new, the best advice that I ever got was take enough money off the table that if you don't have a job anymore, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so figure out what that number is, and make sure you take enough money off the table because things will change, right? So on that topic, post-deal. So, you had your cozy little company, maybe some co-founders, maybe some nice benign angel investors, and now you got a new boss. And they really care about money. They don't care about iPhones and technology. They care about money. That's all they care about. And so, having chemistry with that boss is going to be important. And so, some downsides to PE investment. Too much debt really can hamper your flexibility as an operator. In a recession, it can be a problem. Not so much in software companies, can get really high margins, but there's a lot of companies you hear about, Toys R Us, Caesar's Palace, bankrupt because too highly leveraged, right? This is probably the thing that most CEOs worry about is working relationship. And there's a group of those companies we got together afterwards and we sort of comparing notes. Like, what's your guy like? One guy said, they bring all these consultants in here and they shadow all the executives. They're driving us crazy, right? So he's McKinsey educated operating consultants who've never built a business before are Googling, how to run a SaaS company, and then they come and try and tell you what to do, right? Very annoying, very distracting, leads to a lot of executive turnover, right? That could be a problem. Reporting. Lots of reporting. Reporting every month, reporting in infinite detail on really sometimes esoteric financial matters that are interpreted through some kind of GAAP accounting rule, right? Waste of time. You're going to have to hire someone full time. It's going to cost you an extra $100,000 a year just to report. And on top of that, they might ask for management fees just to get your reports. Right? So there's like a tax. It's almost like being a public company, except you're not public, right? You're having all this compliance, right? That's a pain in the ass. You disagree on strategy, right? The other thing that PE guys, what they like to do is like to buy companies, right? Buying companies is risky. Maybe you don't want to risk your equity. Maybe it doesn't matter because it's not their money. I mean, it kind of is their money, but it really belongs to a pension fund. So it's sort of their money. And they've got 10 other companies, right? So you disagree on strategy. You're not good with rules processed or being owned, right? And I can tell you, I've got Dave Wilson. Dave Wilson, maybe raise your hand. I don't know if he's in the room. Maybe he's left. He's on my board. Anyway, I remember my first experience. I call him up and, Dave, I don't like this. He said, well, get used to being owned. Anyway, but you got to be process driven. You got to be rules driven. And you got to be analytical. They like that stuff. I've got a friend who's got a great business, bootstrapped, $50 million, makes $50 million a year. Private equity guys approach him all the time. They said, look, we buy the company, we're going to hire a professional CEO because you're crazy, right? They know right away that he's not a fit, and he's accepted he's not a fit, right? So you have to have a certain way of. I'm very analytically, I'm very process and rules driven. I'm like I like running the machine, right? So I'm a pretty good fit for these guys. And obviously, if you're not, your relationship can deteriorate. And different private equity firms, different people, different partners are going to be very different. I fortunately, in the case of NovaCap, that I got acquired in 2016, had a really good relationship. So these are the reasons that we did it. So first of all, this is me, different look. I won a slow pitch championship. we got acquired July 2016, and what I really liked about it was it was a life-changing moment financially for me. It was a long journey. Made a bunch of angel investors money, made a bunch of founders money. I had co-founders, a bunch weren't working in the business. It was just really mission accomplished, right? And but what was really cool is I feel like I won the Stanley Cup, but I still have my team and I can play for another championship. Because I rolled a bunch of equity, I took a bunch of off the table. Staff got a whole bunch of new option plan. They got the buy-in on the deal. I had more shareholders in the company than I had before, and we get to play for another championship, right? Another exit, right? Which for me was really kind of cool. But the reason I did it, and for many of you who are still in the grind, as you call it, as your business becomes more valuable, all of a sudden you got 85% of your net worth in this illiquid asset, in this single liquid asset. It gets risky. And I'm 51. As you approach, in your late 40s, you start getting a little more risk averse, and you're like, "Gee, be nice to diversify my." You can ask John Duke here from RBC Securities about diversification and so forth and so on. So there is that pull. You start becoming fearful that we got to be careful what we do. I don't want to lose. There's an anxiety that builds up over time. Great advice from one of our board members is the three founders. We were debating what we should do. He said, it's more fun having money when you're young and you can spend it on your kids. So what are you waiting for, right? And that was really, we had one holdout that kind of set him off. Oh yeah, you're right. Why wait? Why wait till I'm 65 or 70? Let's do this. As I mentioned, equity participation and ongoing growth of the company. You also learn how PE investors think. I personally, I don't have a financial background. I have a degree in history, but I like finance and I like strategy and I like reading about, okay, how do these folks make money? I am very, I'm very interested as a general business person and how that business works. In fact, now I'm an investor in one of their funds. I'm an LP. I get reports. Okay, why would you invest in that company? Let me see and tear apart, the information I can. So that's, I think, very interesting. And you get to keep CEOing. I'm not at 27 years like Jeff, Wiener here. But I like being the CEO. I like being the poobah. I don't know anyone else here maybe doesn't like it, but I actually really enjoy it. And and it's fun. And the other benefit, so how many here, anyone here being acquired by a corporation that's wrecked their company? Hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know many more. It's more common when a strategic buys your company that your company is going to be adversely affected. Why? Because they put other people in charge often, right? They mess it up, right? If you're acquired as a platform investment by a PE fund, as long as you're delivering the numbers, you're still running your business, right? It's great. So for me, it's been a really good experience. I've really enjoyed it. Obviously it's been also a good experience because the business continues to perform. If the business wasn't performing, just like any job, you'd be in trouble. I would also say that I was well suited for it. When I got involved in founding Firmex, I was the director of sales. I was a founding director of sales. There were 4 other shareholders. I was always accountable to others. I wasn't a 100% owner or 90% over a business. When we took on angel investors, we sold 45% of the business to them. I was accountable to them. I reported diligently every quarter reporting. So I was used to being accountable, and I knew that if I didn't deliver on the business, that over some period of time, they'd have to find another manager, right? So I think for some entrepreneurs who haven't had that kind of accountability, this might come as a bit of a shock, right? So that's anyway, that's my presentation on whether buyout equity should be for you. I hope if you're in that situation with a mature software company, this was helpful, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.